2 words. That's it. Not a sentence, not a speech, not some rehearsed pickup line you scribbled on a napkin at 2 a.m. 2 simple words that, when slipped into a conversation at exactly the right moment, quietly rewire how a woman thinks about you. Her pupils widen, her voice drops a half step softer. She leans in without realizing she's leaning in. And here's the part that should genuinely alarm you. Most men go their entire adult lives never saying these 2 words to a single woman they're actually interested in. Not once. I'm a woman. I felt the effect of these 2 words more times than I can count, and I'm about to hand you the exact formula that behavioral psychologists have been quietly studying for almost 30 years. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to realize the reason women kept losing interest in you had nothing to do with your looks, your paycheck, or your biceps. It was always about a language you were never taught to speak. Before I tell you what the 2 words are, I need you to promise me one thing. When I reveal them, you are not allowed to roll your eyes. You are not allowed to mutter, "That's it," under your breath and scroll away. Because that dismissive little shrug right there is the exact reason roughly 9 out of 10 men keep striking out with women who were genuinely, quietly open to them. The simplicity is the whole point. Researchers at UNC Chapel Hill spent years tracking couples and kept finding the same uncomfortable result. The strongest predictor of sustained female attraction had almost nothing to do with looks, income, or even first date chemistry. It was a very specific verbal behavior that most men never perform and were never taught to. These 2 words trigger that behavior instantly. I'll tell you what they are in a few minutes, but first you need to understand why your own brain has been fighting against saying them your whole life. Because if you skip that part, they will not work. They might even backfire. Hi, it's me, your slightly too honest girlfriend who's about to commit minor treason against girl code for the greater good of men everywhere. Consider this my gift to every guy who has ever sat across from a woman he really, really liked, watched her slowly check out of the conversation, and genuinely wondered what went wrong when he had been doing everything right. You were funny, you asked good questions, you complimented her top, remembered what she did for work, and picked the restaurant she hinted she wanted to try. And still, somewhere around the second drink, you felt her energy quietly shift from, "This is interesting," to, "I'll text you tomorrow." That shift is not random. It's not bad luck. It's not because she wasn't in a place to date right now. It's a predictable psychological pattern. And it happens because you kept doing what every dating blog since 2006 told you to do without ever doing the one small thing that actually makes a woman feel something click inside her chest. I've spent a stupid amount of time reading every major study I could find on female attraction. John Gottman's famous Love Lab, Sarah Algo's work on gratitude, Arthur Aaron's closeness experiments, Carol Rusbolt's research on something called the Michelangelo phenomenon. And across every single body of work, the same uncomfortable pattern kept showing up. Women are not primarily attracted to attention. Plenty of men give women attention. Women are attracted to a very particular flavor of attention, and the 2 words I'm about to teach you are the cleanest, fastest, most surgical way to deliver it. Men who stumble into these words by accident become the guys she texts her friends about at midnight. Men who learn to use them on purpose become something rarer, something I'd argue is actually dangerous in the best possible way. Let me explain how we ended up here, because the backstory is honestly wilder than the reveal. Here's the first uncomfortable truth. The standard advice men get about what women want is a pile of conflicting nonsense served on a flaming plate. Be confident but not arrogant. Be a challenge but not cold. Give compliments but not too many. Be mysterious, but also deeply emotionally available. It reads like a recipe written by 4 different chefs who all hate each other. And because of that chaos, most guys default to what feels safest, the generic compliment. You look beautiful tonight. Your eyes are gorgeous. Wow, you're so smart. Now here's the shocking part. Generic compliments, the things most men think are their secret weapon, actually lower attraction in many cases. I know. I felt personally attacked when I first read the research, too. A study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships found that women rated men who gave broad, appearance-based compliments as less emotionally intelligent and less desirable for long-term interest than men who made specific, observation-based comments. Why? Because a compliment about how she looks is a compliment any man with functional eyes could give her. She's heard, "You're beautiful," since she was 14 years old, from teachers, strangers, creepy uncles, and the guy who bags her groceries. It's wallpaper. It doesn't move her. In some cases, it actively triggers her guard because beautiful looking is the cheapest currency men hand out. And her brain has been trained since middle school to be suspicious of it. This was shocking to me the first time I understood it clearly. I used to think compliments were the whole game. They're not. They're the warm-up act, the real show. The moment her nervous system genuinely shifts happens when a man communicates something no stranger could possibly know. And that is the exact doorway those 2 words open. But I'm not telling you yet. Stay with me. Let me walk you through the science, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. In the 1990s, psychologist Arthur Aron ran a now famous experiment where 2 strangers asked each other 36 progressively personal questions and then stared into each other's eyes for 4 minutes. Some of the participants, complete strangers remember, ended up married. The experiment wasn't about the questions themselves, it was about what the questions forced the participants to do. Notice each other, actually see each other. The intimacy didn't come from the answers, it came from the attention. Roll forward to 2013. Researcher Sarah Algo at UNC proposes something she calls the find-remind theory of gratitude. Her team finds that expressing specific, detailed appreciation doesn't just make people feel good, it literally binds them to you emotionally. The key word is specific. Generic thanks, the throwaway thanks babe, does nothing. Detailed acknowledgement, naming the small, unrequested things someone did, creates measurable increases in relationship satisfaction, trust, and yes, desire. Then there's John Gottman, the guy who can reportedly predict divorce with over 90% accuracy after watching a couple argue for 15 minutes. Gottman's most quietly terrifying finding is what he calls bids for connection. Every single day, partners make tiny bids, a sigh, a glance, a random comment about a bird outside the window, and partners either turn toward the bid or turn away. Couples who stayed together turned toward bids 86% of the time. Couples who split, 33% attraction, desire, long-term pull. All of it is built on being seen in the small moments, not the big ones. And finally, the most beautiful one from Carol Rusbolt, the Michelangelo phenomenon. Michelangelo famously said he didn't sculpt the statue, he just released the figure already inside the marble. Rusbolt found that the partners we desire most are the ones who see the version of us we're trying to become and reflect it back to us. Not who we are, who we're becoming. So what do gratitude research, Gottman's bids, the Michelangelo phenomenon, and Aron's 36 questions all have in common? They all come down to one verbal move. Acknowledged observation being specifically, particularly, irreplaceably seen. And there are exactly 2 words that plant that flag in a woman's mind faster than anything else in the English language. Are you ready? Take a breath. Here it is. I noticed. That's it. Those are the 2 words. I noticed the way you got quiet when your boss came up. I noticed you always order the thing you haven't tried before. I noticed you light up when you talk about your sister. I noticed you pause before answering hard questions instead of filling the silence. 2 words, and then whatever specific, genuine thing you actually saw. Not a compliment, not a line, an observation. Now, here comes the part where 70% of the men watching are silently going, "That's it." And to you, I would gently say, yes, that is it. And the fact that you just had that reaction is precisely why you haven't been using them, and precisely why the guy who figures this out ahead of you is going to be the one she ends up describing to her best friend as different. I can't explain it. He just gets me. Let me show you why 2 tiny words break the whole code. Here's the neuroscience. Kept painless. When a woman hears, "I noticed," and from a man she's interested in, 3 things fire at once inside her nervous system. First, her brain runs a rapid check. This man is paying attention to something specific about me, not my body, not the obvious. Something a random guy at the bar could never have caught. That specificity is the key that opens the lock. The female brain has been immersed in generic attention her entire life. Specific, accurate observation is rare enough to be genuinely startling. Second, she feels what researchers call epistemic recognition, the sense that another person has an accurate mental model of who she is. Humans are desperate for this. We spend our lives feeling slightly misunderstood by almost everyone around us. When a man demonstrates in 2 words that he has been quietly constructing an accurate map of who she is, her oxytocin response spikes. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone. It's the same chemical released during hugs, breastfeeding, and long eye contact. You are, chemically speaking, hugging her from across the table with a sentence. Third, and this is the one that makes the whole thing slightly unfair in your favor. Her brain makes a prediction. If you noticed this, what else has he noticed? The mystery of what you might know about her becomes magnetic. It's the same mechanism that makes unfinished stories more memorable than finished ones. Psychologists call it the Zeigarnik effect. Her mind now has an open loop about you, and that open loop is desire's natural habitat. Compare that to "You look beautiful." "You look beautiful" closes every loop. It tells her nothing she doesn't already know. It offers no map of her interior world. It is chemically a handshake. "I noticed" is a door, a small, softly lit door that leads somewhere she wasn't expecting to be invited. This was the moment I genuinely had to put the research down and take a walk around the block, because I realized I had been unconsciously rewarding men for this my entire dating life without knowing what the pattern was. The men I remembered years later weren't the best-looking ones. They were the ones who had noticed. All right, the warning label. You cannot just robotically paste "I noticed" onto random observations and expect magic. The phrase has 3 rules, and if you violate them, you will come across as either creepy, rehearsed, or both. Let me walk you through it. Rule 1. It has to be true. I cannot overstate this. Women have a near supernatural radar for invented compliments. If you manufacture an observation she knows isn't real, the entire effect collapses. Only notice things you actually noticed. Rule 2. It has to be about her interior, not her exterior. This is where men mess up immediately. "I noticed your legs in those jeans" is not the move. That is a compliment wearing a disguise. I noticed you get a little softer when you talk about your grandmother. That is the move. You're pointing at her inner world, not her outer shell. One makes her feel objectified. The other makes her feel known. Rule 3. Deliver it casually, almost in passing. Do not make it a speech. Do not hold eye contact for 9 uncomfortable seconds while you announce your observation. Slip it in, almost offhandedly, while stirring your coffee or watching the road. I noticed you always laugh at your own jokes before you finish them. It's kind of adorable. Beat. Move on. Change subject. The casualness is what makes it land. A man who makes observations without making a production out of them feels effortlessly attentive, which is the most attractive pairing a man can project. Warmth without neediness. Let me give you a full script of good versus bad because this matters. Bad. You're so smart. Good. I notice you always ask a second question after someone answers the first one. Most people don't. Bad. You have such a great smile. Good. I noticed you smile a little differently when you actually mean it. I caught the real one twice tonight. Bad. You're beautiful. Good. I noticed you dress for yourself, not for anyone else. That's rare. Feel the difference? The bad versions are generic gifts anyone could hand her. The good versions are custom made for her and only her. One is wallpaper, the other is a love letter disguised as a shrug. Let me tell you about my friend. We'll call him Marcus because his real name would ruin his life. Marcus is objectively a great guy. Smart, kind, good job, reasonably good-looking in a nondescript second row in a group photo kind of way. And he could not, for the life of him, hold a woman's interest past date 3. He had spreadsheets. Actual spreadsheets. He tracked where conversations went sideways. He asked me for advice approximately once a month while slowly losing his mind. One evening over wine, I told him about the research. He did the eye roll. Of course he did. That's it. That's the big secret. I'm supposed to say I noticed. I told him to try it on one date. One. Just once. He rolled his eyes again and agreed mostly to shut me up. 3 weeks later, he called me. He had been on a first date with a woman he had almost cannoned on because he was tired. Somewhere in the middle of the conversation, she mentioned she was thinking about switching careers. And Marcus heard himself say, "I noticed you said thinking about it, not planning. Feels like part of you already knows the answer and is just waiting to be brave enough to hear it." He said there was a two-con silence, and then her entire face changed. She put her drink down. She asked him how he had picked that up. They were together until almost 2 in the morning. She texted him the next day before he texted her, which he said had literally never happened to him in 5 years of dating. He now refers to "I noticed" as, quote, "the most unfair thing a woman has ever handed me." And that is a man who owned spreadsheets. Here's the upgrade. Once you've used the basic form a few times and is becoming natural, there's a subtle variation that is frankly devastating. It's called the positive reframe. Notice. Instead of pointing at something neutral, you notice something she's insecure about and recast it in a generous light. Example, she mentions offhand that she's too much or intense or too sensitive or any of the small self-deprecations women drop into conversations to test the water. Instead of saying, "No, you're not," which is weak and dismissive, you say, "I noticed you apologized for being the most alive person in the room." You might want to stop doing that. Do you feel the weight of that? That is not a compliment. That is a mirror held up to the version of her she's been trying to grow into. That is the Michelangelo phenomenon, showing up wearing a leather jacket. Use this one sparingly. It's the nuclear option used too often. It becomes psychoanalysis, and she'll feel studied instead of seen, but dropped at the right moment, once quietly. It is the closest thing to verbal magic I know. Now for the thing you are probably wondering but didn't want to ask out loud. Does this work on women who already know you? Yes, in some ways even better. Long-term partners starve for specific noticing more than strangers do, because familiarity is the great thief of attention. The woman you've been with for 3 years has not stopped wanting to be seen. She has just stopped expecting you to see her. Saying, "I noticed you've been carrying something heavy this week, and you haven't asked me to help with any of it," can unthaw months of quiet drift in a single sentence. This is not a dating hack. It is a human hack. Dating is just where most men finally get desperate enough to try it. So here's where we land. 2 words. I noticed. 4 syllables, less than a second of speech. And yet, almost mathematically, the difference between being the guy she forgets in a week and the guy she thinks about in the shower 3 months later. It's not a trick. It's not manipulation. It's the simplest form of genuine attention, packaged in a phrase your brain can actually remember in the moment when you need it. Most men will watch this video, nod along, and never use it. A small minority will try it once, feel the shift, and quietly become the kind of man women describe as, "I don't know what it is about him." Be that minority. Not because it's a strategy, because being someone who actually notices is honestly a better way to move through the world. Now here's my genius call to action, and it's not going to be the thing you expect. I'm not going to beg you to smash a button. I'm going to give you homework, because watching this video without doing this is a waste of both our time. Within the next 48 hours, find one woman in your life, a friend, a date, your sister, your coworker, your wife, anyone, and deliver one clean, true, interior-focused, I noticed observation. Then watch her face, not her words, her face. The flicker that crosses it for half a second before she recovers. That flicker is proof. Once you see that flicker with your own eyes, you'll never doubt the research again, because your own nervous system will have filed the receipt. Come back and tell me in the comments what happened. I read them. I especially read the ones from the men who thought this wouldn't work. And one last thing before you go, because this connects directly to everything we just talked about. Knowing how to make a woman feel seen is only half the game. The other half, the one men get brutally wrong all the time, is knowing when a woman is quietly trying to tell you she's not interested without ever saying the words out loud. Because I noticed, used on the wrong person is just wasted breath. And most men waste months, sometimes years, chasing signals that were never green to begin with. So the next video popping up on your screen right now, the truth, if a woman isn't interested, she'll show it with these 7 signs, is not optional homework. That's the mirror image of this one. This video taught you how to pull a woman closer. That video teaches you how to read when she's already walking away, so you stop spending your best material on people who checked out in Chapter 1. Click it. Watch it before you use anything I taught you today. Your future self will thank you, and so will the right woman, the one who actually deserved your noticing all along. I'll see you there.